In this episode, I'm going to discuss about how sustainable is the modern world. The population of the world has grown dramatically. Cutting-edge discovery can enable people to extract or consume natural resources even on a large scale. At the same time, governments from all nations try to maximize the gross domestic product of the countries. So our fragile world is now facing challenges on two fronts: to support the rapid increase in the human population while the resources are being depleted. The big question is, what is sustainability? The concept of sustainability is generally linked to sustainable development, but it can refer to three perspectives. First of all, the consumption of resources, where people can consume at the same amount over long a period of time or indefinitely. But secondly, the changes to the environment. Third is the activity that interact within the system itself. In 1987, in our Common Future report, Rutland explained that sustainable development is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations. The concentric model of sustainability is known as the triple bottom line. It's a kind of like the relationship between environment, society and economy. We need to understand about our emerging issue, so I will discuss first of all about energy. According to the International Energy Agency, the global primary demands for oil, gas, coal, renewable and energy, nuclear energy is forecast to rise to 16,800 million tons of oil equivalent in 2030s. This is an increase of around 30% from 12,300 million tons of oil equivalent in 2008. However, the share of hydrocarbon fuels will decrease from 81% in 2008 to 74% in 2035 in terms of overall primary energy mix. Therefore, in 2035, the increase of the global energy demand is accounted for by renewables and nuclear power. Moreover, the International Energy Agency explained that the emerging economy led by China and India will drive universal demand higher. The non-OECD country, or also known as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, will take around 93% of the forecast increase in the world primary demand because of their fastest growth rate in terms of economic activities as well as urbanization, increased industrial production and population growth. The World Energy Outlook report in 2010 has also provided an insight into the future of energy by making the assumption that the age of cheap oil is over. Demand is increasing for all kinds of energy in non-OECD countries. For instance, the booming demand for mobility, like the global car fleet, will peak when increasing numbers of people in China and other emerging economic countries enjoy purchasing cars. Thus, rising demand can be particularly attributed to those emerging economies, and especially to hydrocarbon fuel subsidies that distort price signals. Without the correct signals to end users, consumers enjoy using the resources without being informed of their scarcity. This then leads to the rapid decline in stock of the resources. In the perspective in the year 2035, it is forecasted that the oil production can rise up to 96 million barrels a day. This includes not just crude oil anymore, but also natural gas liquids and unconventional oils. By unconventional oils, I mean the oils that has become economically viable, while before it was hard to extract. In 1999, the world population was 6 billion, but in 2011, the total has reached 7 billion, and perhaps in 2023, we will reach 8 billion. Surprisingly, most of the population growth comes from the poorest or developing countries. In contrast, the developed country has preserved a population rate of around 1 billion. Impacts from population growth can be severe, especially on health, natural resource security, and increase in poverty. First of all, there is a major health issue in developing countries where the provision of healthcare is very limited. The high fertility rate can have a hostile impact on women and children. According to the World Health Organization report, more than 300 million women in the world suffer from illness because of pregnancy or childbirth. The number of women who die during pregnancy is around 529,000, of whom up to 68,000 die as a result of insecure abortion. Secondly, population growth can lead to a poverty spiral. Well, a poverty spiral is a vicious cycle of poverty that passes from the older generation to next continuously. Because the expansion in agricultural production imply increasing marginal costs, by marginal cost I mean of each unit of product, then population growth without salary improvement will reduce the per capita level of food production. Therefore, the people cannot benefit from accessing an improvement in total food production. Moreover, chronic hunger is another major challenge that is directly associated with growing populations. In developing countries, the number of people experiencing chronic hunger was nearly 4 million per year just in the later part of the 1990s, and there are 852 million undernourished people worldwide. In another perspective, if fertility is decreased, then the investment per child can increase rapidly by both household and the government. Economists agree that declining fertility in countries such as Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, South Korea, India, Malaysia, and Hong Kong has contributed to sustainable economic growth. Thirdly, and also importantly, impact on natural resources is caused by the increasing number of people and the spread of per capita consumption. More people are born every day, but resources are limited. Therefore, demand does or will exceed supply. 1.3 billion people have settled in the area, which are believed to be the richest in biodiversity. And these are comprised about 12% of the Earth's land surface. And here the population grows at a rate of 1.8% annually. Population growth can increase agricultural intensity and lead to increase in land degradation over time. The concept of food security by definition exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutrient food that meet their dietary needs and food preference for an active and healthy life. The Food and Agriculture Organization has expressed concern about food crisis in the future. As stated in the report in 2008, world hunger is increasing, which can be blamed on the high food price. The hardest hit are the poorest and the female-headed households. There is a limited government response and combined effort is needed. The number of undernourished people is still unacceptably high. That is up to 1 billion, and about 166 million undernourished people in country is in a protracted crisis. By protracted crisis, I mean the crisis that spread in the long run. Well, countries in the world are fighting against hunger, but success might vary. The Global Food Index produced by the International Food Policy Research Institute concerned worldwide suggests that global average marks significant difference in various parts of the world. The comparison between the global hunger index score in 2011 and again in 1990 showed that Sub-Saharan Africa has dropped by 18%, South Asia by 25%, and the Near East and North Africa by 39%. The significant achievement in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, where the decrease 44% is remarkable. However, the achievement in food security remains at a high risky level in sub-Saharan Africa. There are three global challenges for food production that cause higher food price. First of all, the accumulation of resources needed for food production in the world has hit a substantial proportion. Technical improvement and agricultural escalation, together with the current rapid rate of the population advance, need more productive land, from an increase of 1/2 by 2030s and probably of 2/3 by 2070s. Secondly, globalization has led the world to be interconnected. The third issue is the impact from agriculture that can contribute to land use issues, freshwater, disease such as drought and flood. More machinery and extra labor, more water, fertilizers, pesticides are needed in order to intensify the agricultural production. The interesting question is, will the high food price persist? The Food and Agricultural Organization has identified the sources that lead to high prices as stock level of market, volatility in the several producing countries have changed their policies, production shortfall from extreme weather, and the rise of petroleum prices. On the demand side, higher prices are caused by higher demand for biofuel consumption patterns, some other factors such as trade policy and financial market. Although food prices have fallen in the short-term period since 2008, the real price of food will be about that of the previous years. 10 years to be exact, because of three assumptions. The expected economic growth in developing countries, the biofuel demand is still rapidly high, and this land and water constraint that cause higher production costs. By 2030s, 3% of an area is encroached by the urbanization, and it is the current cropland area. By 2030s, demographers believe that the percentage of the global population that lives in the metropolitan areas will rise to around 61%. In the next 40 years from now until 2050, the highest average urban growth rates of developing countries is forecast to hit 3.3% annually. Developed countries have reached their peak, while cities in developing countries such as Africa and Asia will experience higher urban growth rate. In 2007, 19 cities in the world had more than 10 million people, and they are considered megacities. If African population keeps increasing, by just 2015 there will be more cities with at least 1 million people in Africa than in Europe or North America. By 2025, the number of megacities is expected to expand to 27, and most of them will be in the developed countries. The roots of urbanization and city growth stem from different factors such as rural-urban movement, natural population surge and annexation. An influx of migrators among the rural poor will change the workforce from agriculture to the industrial sector and consequently lead to change in energy consumption as well. Then, government face two major challenges. On one hand, they maximize the agricultural product with the lack of labor force, while on the other hand, to secure energy and build more infrastructure to accommodate the larger number of people. By 2017, the less developed country will turn from rural to become more urban in terms of character. Trends in the future inevitably lead into crisis. Why? Well, the population is increasing, then more resource and energy are required to support them. Demand for food is much compulsory, but productive land is decreasing through improper practice such as water pollution, land degradation, and deforestation. Additionally, urbanization is encroaching on the productive areas and disturbing ecosystem. There are more and more people to feed and support. An influx of migrators to the cities and individual countries. Economic growth will demand greater energy consumption and is foreseen to be higher, even though they are trying to include renewable energy. Non-renewable resources such as oil, coal are still preferably needed for electricity generation in the future. Therefore, the non-renewable resources are inevitably used up in the near future. It is going to be a hard work to achieve sustainability because images of humankind acting is in an unsustainable way very bold. According to the current research in European countries, three characteristics that all five studies found about humans: they are inherently selfish, they are governed by habit and convenience and money. Social trends are going to be consumerism, individualization, and globalization. Consumption will make people used to unlimited economic growth. Secondly, individualisms that hamper collective action. And thirdly, globalization through which people enjoy a trend toward exotic and diversified foods from everywhere in the world. Well, but hope still remains if we can reflect the real context and commit to work together while raising capacity along the way. To effectively implement policy for resource and sustainability, the policy should reflect the folk psychology. Because if the individual does not actually believe that collective action is realistic, then they simply will not join, and as a consequence, the policy will fail. Let's wrap up for this episode. The world is facing issue of the carrying capacity, and it is hard to convince people to actually believe, but hope still remains if policy can reflect reality, spread and success story and commitment is made to achieve sustainability.